Here we go in three, two, one.
What is up, folks? Welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. With you, as always, is Austin. And I am Blake. And Austin, today is probably going to be a bit of a short episode. We are going to be reviewing the heartbreaking loss for both the men and women men's and women's basketball team against Vanderbilt. And then we'll quickly preview the upcoming week for the men's basketball team against Mississippi State. Just a sprinkling of football news. But man, I'm sure we'll have plenty to say about the loss, especially about Chaz Lanier. You kind of hinted to me before we started recording that you got quite a few words from Mr. Lanier. But man, gosh, unbelievable. Both the men and the women drop a 1-point loss to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, tough weekend. Vanderbilt owns us in basketball for the time being. Both lost at Vanderbilt. But yeah, I mean, the men's loss especially because, I mean, the women are still in rebuilding mode. And, you know, I kind of give them a little bit more of a break. But we were talking about on the Vanderbilt preview, the short Vanderbilt preview in the last episode, that since these games coming up are so tough, we kind of have to have this one in the men's side of it. We need it just to build our resume, and we lost. Tough loss, extremely tough loss. I also was telling you before we got on air that I thought this is the first time that I felt like the defense didn't play well. I mean, even in the Florida game and other games like that we give up more points, I felt like they were still playing with a lot of toughness, just playing with more effort. Like, this is the first game I felt like we weren't contesting a lot of shots that we typically contest. I think the first thing we have to go through is the ending sequence in the game, if you're ready to jump into that. So, basically, we were losing most of the game, especially the second half. It was kind of looking like we weren't going to have an opportunity to come back. But we had about an 8-point deficit with about 2.5 minutes remaining. And we came back. We came back within 2. We had an opportunity. Chaz Lanier had an ISO opportunity with he probably got the ball with about 20 seconds left, maybe a little bit more, maybe 30 seconds. And he opted to go for the layup. We were down by 2, could have went for the 3. I thought, you know, it's like one of those things. We're the favorite in the game, so I understand going for the tie. You're probably going to take it in overtime if you get an opportunity to go into overtime. I understand it from that perspective. However, Chaz also hasn't shown the ability to drive to the rim, especially in ISO situations. And they opted to do that. That was the plan. Like, that was the plan. They gave the ball to Chaz Lanier so that he can have an ISO opportunity to go get a bucket and send us in overtime. He drove to the rim and got bullied. I mean, he just got absolutely bullied. Didn't put a nice move on it. It was just like a simple little layup. Got blocked. Good defensive play. Give Vanderbilt credit. It was good defensive play. But it was disappointing to see because, like, we've been a theme so far this year has been looking for Chaz to expand his game beyond the three-point shot, especially considering he is just a spot-up shooter from the three-point line. He can't even create his own shot. He hasn't shown the ability to do that all year, and yet they trusted him. They trusted him in that final situation to get it done. He gets blocked. Well, Blake, we got awarded another opportunity. Vanderbilt misses their free throw after we foul. And I believe they just got the 1, so we were only in the bonus, not the bonus plus. And they missed their first free throw. Perfect. We rebound it. Chaz Lanier rebounds it. Great rebound. They foul him. They thought they had a foul to give. They did not. Chaz Lanier goes to the line, hits the first free throw, misses the second, and we lose by 1. And it's like, dude, you had 2 opportunities to put your team into overtime. And listen, I get it. It's end of the game free throws. It's a really hard situation. Like, you're on the road. It's a very high intensity situation. But I can't think of a more unclutch sequence, right? You go from getting stuffed at the rim in an ISO layup situation to missing the second free throw of two to send us into overtime, man. It was an incredibly disappointing sequence from Chaz. Incredibly.
Yeah, to say the least, especially coming off the fact that he, has been in this slump that he's been in,
Correct.
and you almost, not quite, but you almost feel bad for the guy. You've been, in this crazy bad slump, and then finally he finally starts scoring again, and like you said, he just absolutely, you know, uh, uh, just absolutely misses the opportunity to get your team in a position to win the game, taking it into overtime or whatever. So, man, disappointing stuff from Chas Lanier. We'll get into a little bit more of the game, the basketball game. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on? You mentioned the defense was, just not what we have become accustomed to. I mean, that's uncharacteristic of a Rick Barnes team, right? Is poor defensive play, and so I mean, what's the deal? Is it scheming, right? I mean, because Chaz finally started scoring again, and so maybe we started favoring offensive scheming, and that's why the defense was down. I don't know, I mean, what could it have been?
I mean, my guess is it's an anomaly. Like it's one of those. It was just a one game sample, so it was poor defense though. And who knows, man? It's a tough road. Like the season, it's a long season, right? They're coming on a little bit short of a rest that could have played a factor, right? Because they had the Wednesday game into the Saturday game instead of the Tuesday game into the Saturday game. So one less day of rest that could have again played a factor into it. I don't think it's anything in particular, though. I think it was just a bad defensive day. I expect them to bounce back in that realm. But as far as Chaz's offense is concerned, man, it's just he was the leading scorer. So if you just looked at the box score, you're like, okay, he did enough. Like it was a solid game by Chaz. But man, it's hard for me to say that at this point, dude, because he's such a limited player. He's so limited. I don't even know if he's our best offensive player, dude. I really don't. And I'm going to bring up the great value joker, Igor Milicic, dude, because I was impressed with his play. Again, I'm impressed with his play. I believe his ceiling is higher than anyone's ceiling on this team. I truly believe that at this point, just from what I'm looking at. Because, listen, Chaz is simply a shot-up three-point shooter. That's what he is, dude. He doesn't have a mid-range game. He can't drive to the hole. He's not even an elite free throw shooter, right? Even he showed that at the end of the Vanderbilt game. So to me, Igor has shown way more and in way more areas at the game than Chaz has at this point. Also, Chaz is our worst defender. That's another thing you have to take into account. Chaz is there to bring an offensive presence, to bring offensive production. That's it. He's not there to be an elite defender like Zakai Ziegler or Meshack. He doesn't bring elite defense. So when you are a liability on the offensive end and you're not already a good defender, that's a problem, dude. And now we have this and listen, the Vanderbilt game was better than the other three games, right? Than the Florida game, the Georgia game, and the Texas game, right? He played better against Vanderbilt. But, dude, at the end of the game, he was the direct reason that we couldn't get into overtime. Listen, I'm not going to blame the whole loss on him because I just mentioned how the defense played poorly. But, when you aren't an elite offensive player and you're a bad defender, at this point, I just don't know what he's bringing to the team at this point. Hopefully,
not sure if he's the guy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't know if he's going to bring the elite offensive production that we expected them to bring. That was the expectation, especially with how he played throughout non-conference play and the Arkansas game. we expected elite offensive production. Is it like Dalton Connect? No, because it's a different style. But his style, Chaz's style at this point, is not working, right? The spot up shooting isn't working. He's not even very good at getting open. Like, he's not extremely good at finding holes in the defense and getting open. Like, I think back to the old Golden State Warriors teams when Steph Curry and Klay Thompson would move around, find an open shot. Chaz isn't even really good at doing that. He's not even really good at getting open, and he has zero ability to create his own shot. However, Igor Milicic, I think, has the ability to create his own shot, dude. He is so good at everything, man. And the only thing is, he hasn't become an elite scorer yet. But I think he's already an elite passer for a big man. I think he plays elite defense. He's a really good rebounder. And I think he has the ability to become an elite offensive player. I really do, man. He can shoot the ball from three. Now, he's not like a 40% three-point shooter, but we don't need him to be. If he's shooting 35% from three, dude, that keeps defenses honest. And then he can develop his game in the paint. Like, he has so much ability to grow, I believe, this year. And they need to get him the ball more. That's my main takeaway. Since Chaz it doesn't seem like he's the guy. It doesn't seem like he's going to bring the elite offensive production that we expected him to bring out of the portal. Then turn to your other portal pickup in Igor Milicic, dude. I really believe he could possibly be the offensive spark we need in games like this against Vanderbilt, or more importantly, in games like Florida, where we have nothing going offensively. I believe he could be that guy offensively.
Biggest 180 in all of fandom.
Sure.
Right here on Vol Talk, the absolute 180 from Austin on the fandom of Igor. But obviously you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of, and look, it's tough, right? As Vols fans, we in one season we got very spoiled with Dalton Connect.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, Chaz is not that kind of guy. He's not that kind of basketball player like Dalton Connect was in terms of his, just his skill set all around. Chaz is pretty much a one-trick pony at this point. We can see that he's a one-trick pony, and it was kind of foreboding when we were talking about him early on when we first kicked off basketball season. We talked about, hey, he's got kind of that low release point on his shot. He's a real quick, catch and release kind of guy. And for whatever reason, it seems like that is the SEC. I don't know if they're just preparing really well for us, these SEC defenses, or again, maybe it's completely a mental slump or whatever. But we saw even in this game that he bounced back in terms of his scoring, but Chaz is still just, there's some sort of mental block or something because he wasn't able to come up clutch against a Vanderbilt team that we should have beat. And that's the main thing that I want to talk about in terms of the game review is, you briefly mentioned it, is the fact that, man, this it's tough to say, especially in the middle of a basketball season, that there's a quote unquote must win game, right? But man, if we want a 1 seed or even a 2 seed at this point, with this SEC gauntlet, you have got to pick up those games against a team like Vanderbilt, where even if it's on the road, this is not as talented of a basketball team as the Vols are. And so you've got to pick up those games, and unfortunately, we didn't. And now we're heading into this week, and I don't want to jump ahead to the preview, but now we're heading into a game against number 15 Mississippi State. And again, we've still got number 1 Auburn looming, which I will say Auburn barely squeaked by against Georgia, whereas, we were able to handle them easily. But point is that this Vanderbilt game, you needed to win it. And unfortunately, again, like you said, we don't want to put it all on Chaz. But he was not clutch in the end, and then now you've dropped this game in the middle of SEC play that you really couldn't afford to lose.
I just think that, unfortunately, I'm not trying to be a downer on Vol Talk, but I don't know if our ceiling now is the 1 seed. Like, without Chaz Lanier, being the elite offensive scorer that we need him to be, unless we can unlock a guy like Igor, right, and he can become that guy, he can start putting up 20 points a game, which I think he's capable of, and he's already bringing a lot of value. But I don't think Chaz has shown that he cannot do that consistently. I mean, he has. Like, yes, is he capable of scoring 25 to 30? Yes, he is, but it's not consistent. I mean, especially in SEC play. So that tells me, dude, if you can't do that in SEC play, I don't see us getting that 1 seed at this point in time. That's my prediction. I don't see us getting that 1 seed at this point in time. We couldn't even get a 1 seed with a guy like Dalton Connect as that elite scorer, alpha kind of player. And Chaz is just nowhere near that. He's just nowhere near that. So we need to find that offensive production. We need to. And without it, I just don't think a 1 seed's possible. And I also am worried about the tournament, dude. I really am, because, I mean, if he has a game, if Chaz has a game where he's putting up 5 to 10 points in the tournament, then we're going to need someone else to step up. And that's why I keep bringing up Igor, because I think he could be that guy. But if and I'm not calling out the coaching staff because I don't know a lick about basketball, man. I'm trying to learn more, but I hope the coaching staff can identify that, hey, listen, we can't keep running our offense through Chaz Lanier because he's just very limited. He's a very limited basketball player, and without shooting because when he was shooting like 45% from three, dude, we should have all known that's not sustainable. Like, players cannot shoot that on a season. 45% from three on a season is just like historically insane production. And yeah, he might be capable of it, but he's like it's already fallen off massively. So like, without him shooting that insane percentage from three, he's not putting up the numbers we need to put him up. So in that case, we need to try to unlock someone else. And I hope the coaching staff can identify that and change it up a little bit. Like the last couple of games, because like in the Texas game, right, Chaz got benched. Well, the last couple of games, Rick has been pulling him out very early in the game. Like that happened again in this Vanderbilt game. He got pulled out with like 2 or 3 minutes into the game. So technically he got benched, but it's because he's missing wide open shots. It's like, dude, if you're missing wide open shots as the worst defender on the floor, there's no reason to have you out there. There's none. I would rather play a guy like Jordan Gainey who can create his own shot and actually is a better defender. Like, I would much rather play him. And listen, Jordan Gainey only had 5 points in this game, but still.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just statistics, right? I mean, the point differential, if you're not scoring points, if you're missing shots, and you're giving up points because you're playing poor defense, then it's just a value proposition, right? You put in a guy who's, at the very least, even if he's not, going to score many points, can stop points from being scored on you. And so, yeah, and again, we keep holding out hope that Chaz will bounce back in some way. But to your point, if he doesn't, then we need to have a backup plan in order to make a run in the tournament, because it's not sustained. Like you said, we're probably gonna drop out in the round of 32 if Chaz has a game, where it's he scores 5-10 points, and we don't have another guy to step up in his place, whether it's Jordan Gainey off the bench, or whether it's if Igor Milicic can get his offensive production rolling, and I don't know what that looks like, right? I don't know if Milicic has the shooting acumen to be able to do that, or if it's going to be heavily dependent on scheme or whatever the case may be. But I obviously I agree with you. We gotta be able to find some other way to make it happen. We can't be a one-trick pony and put all of our marbles in one basket in Chaz Lanier when he himself is a one-trick pony. It's just not a recipe for winning basketball long term.
And it showed it at the end of the game, dude, because because people keep pointing out how Chaz isn't this ISO player. He's nothing like Dalton Connect, which I've said that all season. But the coaching staff gave him the ball in the remaining seconds to go get a layup. So coaching staff clearly thinks he has that in him, but he doesn't. So it directed, or it helped us lose that game, right? Because I don't know, man. To me, Jordan Gainey, okay, against Illinois, had the game-winning layup on an ISO situation. Why is Jordan Gainey not in that spot? That's my question. So I hope.
Because it's one thing, right? If you truly is like Chaz is your best shot, right? And you're like, oh, we don't have any other option to go with. But we've seen you made a great point. I mean, Gainey has been that guy, and so we've seen that he can be that guy. So why not? If Chaz is not coming up for you, then why not? Go with Gainey
or run a play. I mean, Chaz has just not shown all season that he's an ISO player. And that's what they expect. I mean, that was the game plan, dude. They passed him the ball, and they were just like, go get a bucket. And it didn't work. So, I mean, definitely in those situations, they're going to have to go to someone else because he just doesn't have that in his game. And that's my biggest takeaway from this game. And no, it's not the direct reason why we lost, but it's a reason we lost. It's a reason we didn't get into overtime. But as far as the defense, that's going to bounce back. It's a Rick Barnes team. I'm not worried about the defense. It did slip up against Vanderbilt, but it was great against Georgia this week. It's just one of those things. But other than that, Zakai's always awesome to watch. Zakai played good defense, but he always plays good defense. Other than that, man, I don't really have any other takeaways from the game other than, man, it's I hate to say it, but the ceiling is just lower to me, right? It's just lowered. And we'll see. Maybe we go and beat Auburn and Kentucky and, we go on this run. Things could change. I could change my opinion on this. But right now, from what I've seen from the team, the performance I've seen from the team, I think it's a worse team than last year. And last year, it was a 2-seed Elite 8. So I wouldn't think, okay, 1-seed Elite Final Four anymore. That's not where I'm at with this particular team.
Especially when the field is just so loaded.
Yeah.
In the SEC alone.
Exactly.
Not to mention the rest of the country. I mean, Duke is surging and whatnot. And so, yeah, hopefully we find an answer. And like you said, hopefully it changes. And hopefully, this is just a blip. But unfortunately, after starting with Florida and going through until now, it doesn't seem like it's just a blip. It seems like it is something that we need to brace ourselves for, that, as you're saying, the ceiling is not quite as high as we hoped it would be for this year's team. So with that in mind, we've got this matchup coming up in a little bit against Mississippi State. Mississippi State, they're ranked 15th. You noted before we started recording, they don't necessarily have any huge notable players or scorers. I think their best scorer was a guard. But I mean, is there anything that other than, so we're back in Thompson Bowling Arena, right? And so we hope that's gonna help us secure the W. But other than that, what are you looking for this game?
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We're back in Thompson Bowling. We gotta protect our home floor. I also think momentum matters in a season, and if you drop 2 in a row, especially like we've alluded to with the games coming up, things could get ugly. We could really fast. Yeah, it could get bad real fast, exactly. But I think they have shown the ability. When we lost to Florida, we bounced back on the road against Texas, and then in Georgia, we showed a lot of heart in that game, a lot of adversity in the first half, came back, dominated the second half. I'm fine with losing. I'm just worried about the ceiling of the team overall. So I do think they will bounce back against Mississippi State, especially at home. But I also think it's fair to say this team is very limited, especially on the road. And I think we'll see that down the stretch. But I do expect to beat Mississippi State at home because we're elite at home. And yeah, also, man, I mean, it's Igor Milicic watch for me. He's my favorite player. I want to see him more involved. I do. I want to see him with the ball in his hand more. because I think his ceiling is so high. And I'm not just talking about shooting threes. I want to see him down in the block. He's 6'10". He has tons of size. He sees the floor so well. Like, he finds wide open guys. So that's extremely valuable. And yeah, dude, I just want to see him involved more. And, obviously going to still be watching Chaz. Like how can Chaz take a next step? Will he develop any other part of his game? I can't see it at this point. He hasn't shown it all season, so why should I believe he's going to randomly develop an ISO game? I don't think that's going to happen. But I would love to see him start shooting 40% from three again. Like, that would be great if he wants to start being an elite three-point shooter again. But yeah, man, other than that, just hope we get the win.
Yeah, at this point, you don't want to keep saying everything's must win, things like that. But to your point, we got this crazy stretch coming up, right? And so, do you respond, and do you head into that stretch with momentum, or is your momentum going in the opposite direction, where, again, like you said, things could get ugly pretty quickly? So
exactly.
We hope that the W comes in. Great value Joker watch. That's what this Vol Talk podcast is going to be all about when it comes to basketball. The watch on great value Joker. Does he evolve his offensive game and up himself to private selections Joker? We will see. That's what we're hoping for. And at the end of the day, like you said, hopefully we see something more out of Chaz Lanier so that he can start essentially carrying his weight on this team and put us in a position to win.
Exactly. Raises the ceiling of the team when he's an elite scorer. So
exactly. And it's not quite like, say, the quarterback in football, right, where essentially he is the determining factor for the ceiling. Because like you said, if we can find another avenue, then great. If it's Milicic, if it's, Gainey, whoever it is. But it's undeniable that if Lanier can raise his level of play, then our ceiling also gets raised. So we'll be looking out for that, folks. We hope that the Vols will pull off a W against Mississippi State. Again, dropped a 1-point loss to Vanderbilt this past Saturday, but we've got Mississippi State coming up. So we'll be looking out for a W against them. And unfortunately, the Lady Vols also, I think we already briefly mentioned it at the top of the show, but they also dropped just a 1-point loss to Vanderbilt. Like you mentioned, there's probably not a ton to say there. They're on the road. They're still rebuilding. But man, just a string of heartbreaking losses for the Lady Vols. And you never want to be, you never want to go full Butch Jones and start buying into, 5-star hearts and moral victories. But it's tough seeing them lose so close to these teams.
It's true. But luckily, Kim Caldwell does not coach that way. There's no moral victories for her. So, which it's funny. She reminds me of the exact opposite of Butch Jones, which is a great sign. That's a great sign for the Lady Vols. Yeah, just be the exact opposite of Butch Jones.
That's
and that
where
works.
You want to be.
Exactly. That's exactly where you want to be. And yeah, so she's been great, man. It is heartbreaking losses, though. I would like to see them start turning those close losses into wins. But hey, sometimes it's variance, right? It's just unlucky. Like 1-point loss here and there. Like 3 1-point losses, dude. That's unlucky. That's bad variance. That's not like a pattern with the team. That's just simply bad variance. Some of those will start to go their way. And they're tough losses too. Like you mentioned, on the road to Vanderbilt, and then the other 2 were to like top 10 teams. So yeah, love seeing what the Lady Vols are doing, and hopefully they continue. But even though Kim Caldwell won't admit it, they are in a rebuilding stage. Even though she wants to win now, and she is winning now. Like, she still has them in a really good position. Like, they're gonna be a tournament team. They're a team that could make definitely the Sweet 16, Elite 8, possibly even Final 4 if they can get hot. With how they've played some of these really good teams. So, their ceiling is still high this year. But, dude, in the future, again, like, she has so many great recruits coming in. It's going to be fun to watch the Lady Vols once she does get those recruits in. So I'm not really worried about them like the men as much. But yeah, I mean, hopefully they can bounce back as well.
Yeah, sky's the limit if she can continue recruiting like she has been on the just being hot on the recruiting trail, and then like you said, start turning these small losses, start having that variance kind of go your way, right, instead of the opposite direction. Because I mean, you look at Josh Heupel and the football team, right? How many years did we have the ball bounce the wrong way in football, right? And we barely lose, where we, just so, get unlucky or, lose by a touchdown or less, and just again that kind of it just didn't go our way. And finally, we saw in 2022, especially for instance with the Alabama game, right? Those close games that it was almost guaranteed we would lose in this past decade. These close games finally started turning that corner and pulling off those wins in those close situations. And part of that comes down to luck, and part of it does come down to coaching too, and the team and the effort and everything like that. And so we'll definitely be on the lookout for Kim to kind of turn that corner with the Lady Vols and start having those bounce their way, those close games. But speaking of the football team, Austin, will just end real quick on a little bit of football talk. This is Vol Talk. Y'all know we gotta keep y'all up to date on the football team. Of course, there's a little bit of transfer portal news. We got a running back from Duke who you kind of mentioned to me before we started recording. That's probably just going to be more for depth, rather than kind of a key guy in the stable at running backs. But really, Austin, I want to talk about the fact that we are currently recording on Monday night. This will drop tomorrow on Tuesday, but we're recording Monday night while the national championship is currently in play. In fact, they probably just kicked off a few minutes ago, and Ohio State versus Notre Dame. I think we're both rooting for Notre Dame, but at the end of the day, we expect Ohio State to win. And the fact of the matter is it doesn't make it any better that we lost, but it's like, okay, it's, I guess, softens the blow a little bit that the national champion is who we lost to.
Yeah, true, but don't get ahead of yourself. Breaking news on Vol Talk: Notre Dame took the lead early, 7-0. Scoring drive. I think they chewed like 12 minutes off the clock. Nuts. We'll see. I'm about to tune into that game after this. But yeah, Duke running back Star Thomas, I believe is his name, from Duke. I don't expect him to be the starter. I expect Deshaun Bishop to take the starting role next year. At least I hope he does. I think Deshaun Bishop kind of earned that this year. But Deshaun Bishop has also had injury issues. So the coaching staff's thinking, okay, with Deshaun Bishop's injury issues, we probably need depth at that position. Star Thomas isn't like an elite prospect or anything. Solid player. I think some other teams were going after him, so we'll see what he does. I don't know if he'll even be the backup, but we'll see. He might be the backup. But yeah, man. Notre Dame, Ohio State. We'll see how it plays out, man. I did not expect Notre Dame to be up this early, to be honest with you. But if Ohio State does end up winning like we expect, yeah, I think a lot of our analysis from the season review is still true. A lot of the coaching stuff. But it does, I mean, it should make us feel slightly better that we lost the eventual national champions if they do end up pulling it out. And listen, like, we probably play the most talented team in the country, like the best team in the country. If we had Penn State's pool, we'd probably make the Final Four. We might all feel a little different had we done that. But I still do think there are some issues with this coaching staff and with the team in general that need to be addressed. Listen, I mean, at the end of the day, we want to win a national championship. And in order to do that, that's going to be matching the talent of a team like Ohio State. So whether we made the Final Four or not, we would still have to end up beating a team like Ohio State to win a national championship. And we weren't talented enough to do that this year, man. Plain and simple, we just weren't.
Weren't talented enough, so coaches got to continue bringing in that elite talent and the NIL collectives for UT need to step up their game so that we can. I mean, because at the end of the day, money is now king, which, of course, we all know it always was, but especially now, Ohio State's got estimated to be the most expensive roster in college football. So obviously, we're going to have to pony up in order to match that. And yeah, nice breaking news right here on Vol. Again, it's breaking for us, but it'll be about 12 hours old by the time this episode drops. But we'll see what happens once we do drop it. If Notre Dame goes on to shock the world and win the national championship, what a crazy story that would be for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame. Or if Ohio State, like we expect them to, comes back and takes care of business. And really, it's like, okay, if Ohio State wins, then I feel a little bit better about having lost to them at the shoe in the first round. But then if Notre Dame wins, then hey, that's nice because Ohio State lost, so that's
Sure.
always a good thing.
Go Irish.
Go Fighting Irish. So we'll see what happens with that, folks. But that's about all we have for this episode. We reviewed the Vanderbilt loss for both the men and the women. We previewed this upcoming week for the basketball team, and we just capped off a little bit of football news there. And so, as always, we'll keep you all up to date on everything Vols, whether it be basketball, football, or Austin's soon to be baseball.
Yes, sir.
Baseball season is right around the corner, so we will be starting baseball season as well pretty soon. Talking all things Vols, folks, but thank you all so much for joining us. As always, please go ahead and hit that subscription button, turn on the notification bell, drop us a comment, please. We'd love to see your comments and get your feedback. And until the next episode, we hope that you all have a great week, and we will talk to you all then. Until then, go Vols.
GBO.